All right, so we have a half an hour guided meditation, and there'll be a little bit of talking in between it. Throughout this, we will be exploring vulnerability. And I want to start out just in asking you a couple of questions. And these questions, we always have to remember that when we're experiencing or exploring non duality directly, there isn't a right or a wrong. Whatever is happening is happening. And what's really beautiful about this, it gives us permission to allow whatever is here to be here without negating, without seeking for something different, without pushing something away. I mean, this is really what true non duality is. It's reality as it is, whatever is happening for you, your experience, without overshadowing it, without bypassing it, without putting something on top of it to somehow make it shine differently or be all right. It's really an opportunity to befriend, in a sense, not even to dismiss or negate, but befriend the space in which duality happens, where there's that inner critique, that's always critiquing, evaluating, judging, and says things like, this couldn't be it, or you're never enough, you'll never be enough. And it's very defeating in a sense. So I want to begin right from the start to just ask you these things with letting that critic relax. Might be there, letting the commentary relax, letting any memory about how you might have even been this morning or yesterday, let that relax. Because our experience is always fresh. It never really repeats itself the same way. It might in the mind, but in direct experience is always alive and fresh. So I want to just explore with you with this question. How are you in relationship to your feelings? Is it all right? Is it all right to feel all kinds of emotions? So just with that question, it's almost as if we're checking, is there any resistance to feeling? So what happens in any of your relationships or in your environment when you feel a really strong energy that you might label as anger, or an energy of jealousy, or sadness, or grief, or even joy, all of the different energies that are part of being a human and that might be conditioned for each and every one of us very uniquely. So if we're going to embody who we are, if we're going to be able to live the deepest expression of who we are from a space of freedom, we need to be able to give ourselves full permission for whatever is experiencing itself within us. And when I say that, we'll do this in the meditation, for that to be able to be fresh and direct, meaning we're not to jump ahead of experience. Like, say some energies are arising, and then what we might want to do is, well, it might just happen that a memory comes forward about what happened the last time that energy presented itself. And then we'll already have a foregone conclusion in a sense of the trajectory that we're on. So here, let's let any conclusion that it's informed by past experience, to let that relax also. Because we don't know. We do not know where energy is going. What the next thing will be ever. So let's just be fresh. And we're going to explore this. If you can come onto the Zoom call, we're going to continue to work with the different dynamics of how energy, the humanness, our humanness, the energy of our life body, that's full of energy, that has such a history and is unique for each and every one of us. So how we express our deepest knowing, our deepest value, our deepest realization will uniquely express itself through each and every one of us. And in order to do that, the universe, in a sense, will conspire to present situations in our lives that will stir up, will kind of shake up energies that haven't had a chance yet, sensations, energies, feelings, to harmonize or to transmute or to just leave the body. But often energies will transmute and harmonize. And so much of that is related to how we're organized in our belief systems and in our core values. So let's continue with this invitation, as always, to allow everything within you and around you to be exactly as it is. Coming into your okayness, the rightness of you. And I said some things that may have stimulated some ideas, some insights. Let that be here. And let's see if we can let the energies in the head settle down into the body. And with that, you may find that your breath will deepen. So breathe wide and deep. And as your eyes close, let your eyes soften in their sockets, almost as if your eyes are relaxing into a warm body of water. Softening, softening, softening. So we're not needing to engage the physical aspect of seeing that is often turned outward. So the eyes softening, in a sense, relaxing physicality, is an invitation to open a different perception, a different way of perceiving from inside. Now, as if you have eyes or an inner seeing within the totality of you, non-locatable, simply perceiving. In a sense, I often use the word noticing, but it is a perceiving that's inner and opens you to an inner, actually many inner dimensions of being. So naturally, your breath has probably returned to its normal rhythm of breathing in and out. So intelligent the body is. Relax into the intelligence of your body. Let the breath move itself as it will. And this intelligence of the body is unique in and of itself, but it's not separate from this inner seeing. You can't really locate the intelligence of your body in any one space. It's more like the entirety of the physical form is able to relax into this still, quiet intelligence that is total, all encompassing of the entirety of you. At the same time, it feels grounding through the base of the body, anchoring through the feet, as well as lifting, opening, light. It has a quality of ground, anchoring, stability, and at the same time, it's very light and buoyant. So you may have a sense of the body through this intelligence lifting and floating in a space of expansion, and at the same time grounding and anchoring in a space of power, almost giving a feel of density that is landed and grounded, but very porous at the same time. Just feel it. It's almost as if this intelligence in the body, in its absolute essence, is formless. This perception, in the same way you can't see seeing, you can't see perceiving. It's just happening. Well, here is a absolute formless essence that doesn't ever really lose its sense of form. This body here, the strength and energy through the legs. But you can let the form lighten as formlessness in this meditation, so it can, every aspect of you, emotional, psychological, intellectual, all the parts of being human, the relational and social you, can be nourished by this absolute formless intelligence of you as you. Let everything about you relax here. Full permission to relax into this formless, wide, deep intelligence. nourishing the inner dimension of you from here. On this timeless, formless, unlocatable, spacious intelligence. Full permission. Now, I want to encourage you, if you feel like you're settling into a space of being deeply nourished, feel full permission to stay there. I'm going to speak for a little bit, but you can always listen to this piece later. It's really important. It's the most important thing. Not the words, but to be so deeply nourished by and being as your timeless essence, your formless nature, this intelligence that's always here within all of us. Now, the more that we nourish here and attune here, this capacity to meet our humanness, to express our humanness from our deepest value. And once you touch into your timeless essence, it will begin to align you, align everything in your life with this core, the core essence of you. So go ahead and turn the program off if you want. I'm never offended, and you can listen later. But I want to say a couple of things that I've been sitting with and considering how to point at something that's so, so important. And, what can I say to assist somebody in a process? And I work with people one-on-one. I work in retreats with people. And essentially, what we're working with is the human condition. But we're addressing or assisting the unraveling of conditioning through a value system, you could say. So how this unravels has so much to do with what it is we value, what it is we aspire to. What do we hold as more important? And the way that our life shows up on the outside will often reflect our value system, what it is we really value, and we'll be informed by that. And either our values will shift or will continue to perhaps play out a particular kind of a drama or a way of being in life that, even though we might feel like we value something, and we can even say that in our words and want it sincerely, but what hasn't happened, perhaps because if it's not aligning up in our relative life, it's, there's still dramas playing out, conflicts, discord, big challenge, and nothing wrong with any of that, which is why this is difficult to speak about, because challenge is necessary for our growth, for our maturation, for our evolution. I didn't say suffering. There's a very big difference between challenge and suffering. Suffering is more of a psychological engagement that at a certain point you can choose not to suffer. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when our values, what it is we really feel we hold dear and important and we cherish, if that's not what's happening outside, what it might mean is that there's a belief somewhere in the conditioning that still needs to be investigated. It needs to be found out if it wants to be held any longer. Or can that belief system also be uprooted? So there's quite a bit involved in this. So let me read the question that came to me. And it's almost as if with this kind of a question, I really would love to sit with you directly. And I love to do things experientially. That's my way. And one pointer, you could call it a technique or a tool, is leading to the next to the next, to the next. And each one of us is very unique in our history, in what we bring forward, and how conditioning may have raveled itself, may have even solidified itself somewhere, lodged itself in, and is still lingering. And how that unravels is unique for each and every one of us. And it very much relates to our values, our belief systems, and our capacity, coming into attunement with our capacity to heal. And the meditation that we just did, to give yourself an opportunity to be deeply, deeply nourished by the essence of you. Because that essence, in its intelligence, which is universal and connected to all things, that is its value. Its value is peace and harmony and freedom, and the expression of your aliveness, embodied freedom to move in the world in a way that is unencumbered by conditioning. You could say, and I'll say this, I am saying this right now, that this is what intelligence values, our core universal intelligence. And in this intelligence, it will bring to us in the manifestation of the world, relative existence. It will conspire and bring to us the next experience. It will use whatever it wants to use for us to see here is a space that is still not in harmony, conflicted, confused, hasn't quite clarified, hasn't quite harmonized, hasn't quite come into its love, hasn't come into its deep care for itself. It hasn't come into its softness. It hasn't come into its vulnerability. And that's where we're going with this. This is any technique or pointer that I use when I'm working with someone directly, is to bring them to a space of vulnerability. So I'll continue with that. So here's this question, because here's a good place to interject it. Okay. I've been moving through some very intense energies in my body of anger, but like volcanic anger, Kali head slaying kind of action. Love that. I find it really hard to sit with, as it wants to erupt. And when it does erupt, I go unconscious. But seeing, lose presence, and make a mess of things. How can I learn to sit with this in mindfulness, in presence, in stillness, without bouncing off the walls? Okay, well, first of all, right here in this last sentence says a lot. Because there's how do I be tender in this? To be tender with this part here, that, to feel this deep aspiration, this to sit, the wanting to sit, the sincerity and the courage to sit with something that's difficult, that's very challenging. But there's a condition here. I want to sit, but I don't want to bounce off the walls. So here, as soon as we enter, if we want to take up our seat, we have to sit, we have to come to presence without any, only if. Or I'll sit with it if it's going to go this way, not that way. So you see how we're not really letting go in that request. We don't know what's going to happen. So right there, so there's a precluding condition. So we have to see that and be willing. So can we be so willing? It is like sitting, we don't know, in the unknown. Every present, every moment, every time we sit is a new moment. It doesn't necessarily mean the sitting will go the same way it did the prior time. And actually it really usually never does, unless we're very conditioned in our technique and we're kind of controlling and creating. And there's a lot of will in that, personal will. So we haven't really let go into the will of, call it God or goddess or spirit. So it's letting go, and it's really letting go into this intelligence, trusting that there is this intelligence. And we don't know what the next thing will be. There may be an energetic feeling of bouncing around and so much energy moving, but we don't know that. So there's a lot that I'm saying here, and I feel I wish I had this person right in front of me. And I'm sure that this is the question of many. This is a universal question. It's one that I had for myself at one time. Okay, so let's set aside the label of anger, even for a moment. Say there's really strong, potent energy moving in the system. Well, in the very same way that we can't make a toddler sit in a corner and ask them to be quiet, it's that same kind of energy. It may be angry, it may not. It's just energy. So very often this kind of energy is masking something else. So we may actually, the body, to get to what's beneath that strong energy that's on the surface, is sometimes it needs just that part, needs an outlet, kind of like letting steam out of a pot. You open the aperture there at the front and you just let that steam blow out. Well, in the same way, it might be helpful to run or to pound or to get out and your earth into your feet into Mother Earth. Do kinds of things that are really physical, because this is here on the surface is a physical energy, and almost like you're exhausting that energy. But that's really only part of it, because we're addressing something that's on the surface, and that may or may not be helpful. But how it can be helpful is if, while that energy is dissipating on the surface, is that we are not in our minds with it. We're not engaging it through some kind of, like it's leading to a particular goal, or there's some expectation behind it, or it engages a story about it. And if we can stay with the energy in the body, really just let the body do what it needs to do without getting in there to help it in any way, then that energy can really move itself, dissipate, exhaust itself. Then we can return to the seat, empty of expectation, empty of some precluding notions of what the trajectory is. We don't know. So really sitting empty of any idea of what this is. And with that, in that, you're sitting down in your vulnerability. It's almost as if when something is really strong and challenging, it's natural to want to protect that tender space of deep care that we all have for ourselves. And especially in this particular situation, there wouldn't be this force of energy had there not been at the base of it, beneath it, below it, before it, a care, a love, a tenderness. So, can we then choose to sit in a space of open, soft vulnerability and let the strength of that energy continue to move? So many things can be happening at once. Energy might be moving, sensations happening, maybe some feelings will come. There might be some soft emptying of tears as we're just letting ourselves be vulnerable to this tenderness, this deep, soft care. And that's where everything meets. That's where you're meeting the deepest aspect of you. And these energies are then allowed to transmute, to shift and change. And they enliven. You know, when you bring fire, when you bring life, and that's, I'm saying bring, but it's not you bringing it. But these energies are they come to unify into your wholeness, the wholeness of you, before conditioning, before hurt, before the need to protect, before guardedness, before all the fix-it programs, you know, before all these ways of trying to change ourselves, become better humans or whatever. All the energies that move us away from this soft, tender, spacious, unified wholeness here. So all of this unifies within the deepest core of you. And how this is allowed to happen comes back, as what I spoke about in the beginning. It comes back to what it is you value and what beliefs might be interfering with your deepest value being able to express itself, and how we are in relationship to the multifaceted ways of being in the world, in this relative existence as a human being, who does have challenges, who will. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as an enlightened being without challenge, because there is no such thing as separation, and we're all in this together. So there's an evolution of consciousness that contains, includes everyone and everything. Nothing is left out. So if we have a idea or a notion that we're going to come to a place where we won't be challenged by different kinds of energies or situations or life experiences, then we're setting ourselves up for a great disappointment. Rather, if we open to this deeper capacity of who we are, this core intelligence that knows what it's doing, that knows its deepest value, and that it will use everything anyone, every situation, to bring everything into alignment with itself, to know yourself as undivided. And in this knowing, then you are a force, a beneficial force for humanity. And this is something we all need now. So value these energies. It's not a mistake. Take up your seat without an agenda, without an expectation. Enter empty. Let yourself be vulnerable. Give yourself full permission. You'll have no regrets. Absolutely.